Hey there, I've got another fix for you. I discovered that I had some splits in the tubing that runs to my rear window washer, and I needed to just replace a section of it because it had several different splits. So instead of ordering the General Motors tube, and because it costs so much more, I ended up going with a universal tube that I found on Amazon. I knew when I purchased this tube that it was going to be a wider diameter than the original tube. And I purchased it anyway. It had free return, so I thought I would get it anyway and just try and see if I could make it work. It comes with several different connectors. They have some T connectors and then some of these. I think it's a Y connector. I really didn't need the T or the Y, but I needed these, which actually matches the end of the original General Motors tips. In order to replace this tube, I needed to make sure that this new connector would fit into this right here. This is the portion from here back, and it runs around here and then down is where the smaller diameter tube is. But from this point on into the lift gate is a more flexible type hose, which is more like what I just ordered. The hose that runs from that point under the truck and up to the engine where the reservoir is this thinner, very rigid hose. And this is the hose that's been giving me trouble all along with different splits. I've repaired some other sections up closer to the engine. I'm not sure why they're getting splits, because I've been using the washer fluid that's not supposed to freeze. And being in Mississippi, we don't have a whole lot of freezing weather, but I end up using that anyway because it also cleans better, cleans the bug splats off the windshield better. All right, let's see what we can do to get this fixed. The first thing, all right, I had cut this piece of hose off at the split because I thought I was just going to replace this section, but I've decided I'm going to take it all the way down from here. I'm going to go ahead and replace all of this where it goes through. Now I've got a little grommet, I've got to go through it. I've got to make sure it's going to fit through that hole, and it goes down behind this vent piece I've got to take off, and then behind the tail light, which I've already got off, and then it connects in down below the bumper here. So I've got to be sure that these fittings are going to be tight enough to fit into here, and also the same thing that's underneath under the bumper at the back. Actually, I think what I may do, there is a connector here already between these two pieces of tubing. I'm going to take that off and actually see if this new hose will fit that fitting. If so, then I don't even have to use this one here. So let me check that. All right, I pulled this off. It just pulls straight off of there. And that appears to be the same diameter. Let me see if this hose will fit on there. And it does. I think that's going to be a perfect fit. I'm not even going to use that adapter here, but that's going to be perfect. All right, here's the grommet with the pass-through for that hose. This hose is not going to fit in there. And I've got to check the condition of this here to make sure it's not deteriorated. And actually, it seems pretty flexible. So I'm just going to pop that out. I found out that the original tube would fit very snugly inside my new tube. So I just pushed that in there. I'm just going to have a small section of the original tube just passing through this. And then just cut this off on this side and do the same thing. Just push the new hose onto that. I have that attached. I don't think you can see it. Anyway, I tried to route it the same place they had it routed. There's a little clip that the old hose was in that I can't actually clamp the clip, but it's holding it up out of the way. The main thing is you don't want this to get pinched because it is a softer hose or tube. I'm trying to route it exactly the way they had it. I think it's supposed to sit in that little groove up there and then runs along over here. Now my trouble is I can't, because of my my unit here, I can't get this plastic piece off. to get my hand up in there to run this back out this hole over here. So what I'm going to do is, using the old section of tube that I had cut off, I want to stick this on the end of it and then use this stiff hose, because this is so flexible it won't let me push it out through all that stuff. So I'm going to put this stiff piece on the end of this and push it through like that. Alright, so that worked like a charm. I just shoved that enough to grab it, and then was able to, since this is so stiff, run it up in there, and then I put my fingers inside this hole and grabbed it. And I should be able to just pull that on through. Yeah, there it is. Alright, so now I can get my length cut. Alright, I got my length of hose cut off. I've got it, the original piece of tube, shoved up in here as tight as I can, as far as I can get it to go. And I'll just pop that in there. I ended up just using the tube end with the barb on it, because I figured it'll give a little extra seal. Alright, I got the plug back in place. I shoved this on that barb as far as I could, but goodness, with it being a little bit larger, it really was hard to push it. But which makes for an excellent fit, actually. So that'll be great. And I'm not quite sure where I'm going to reattach. I don't know if I'm going to go all the way under to where it attaches under the bumper, or just maybe tie into this right here. Because I believe this hose, I need to recheck this hose and see, make sure it's good all the way. There's something feels funny right there. Alright, I came up under here just to see how the condition of the hose down below the bumper where I couldn't see. And everything seems fine up to this point. And here's another connector, like the one that's up in the headliner. And I think I'm just going to leave that alone. And there's so much dirt up under here. I really don't want to get up here, under here, and have to play with this stuff, because I end up with trash in my eyes, which just happened. So I'm just going to go up there and make my next attachment point. After inspecting this hose, I see there's it's like a crimp or something right there. I think this is where I'm going to end up cutting off and tying back in, just in case that's a weak point. I don't want to have any more issues. So I'm just going to cut it right here and shove this tube inside of this tube. And I think that's going to be it. And then we'll test it out. Alright, I got them joined together. Alright, I see that it's dripping out, but it's not spraying out like it should. So let me see if I've got another leak. There's no water there. Or no fluid, actually. It's not water. Not leaking there. Not leaking there. So, I popped the hood a while ago. Another point that I've had trouble with it leaking is, it's another one of these connections here. It ends up just, it may be just for me traveling these rough roads, these connectors will just come undone and water will be squirting up in the engine. And I had repaired a spot up here. See where that tape is? It had a pinhole, so I had super glued over it, or did some kind of glue over it, and then I wrapped electrical tape around it, and I did that about 4 years ago. I don't know, the lift gate may have to be closed to give a good squirt. Let me try that. It is not working. Ugh. Alright, new development. After all of that, I kept trying to get that to work, and it would drip through but never squirt with any force. So I have pulled all this stuff back out to make sure I didn't have anything crimped, pinched, or anything, and everything's good up until this point where I attached into it. So I tried blowing through it, and I just could not get any pressure to go through it, and I tried to suck back on it just to see it, and there's a huge, something is blocking it. So not knowing how hard I could put pressure on there with my own breath, I decided to hook up my air compressor, and as soon as I turn that on, it shuts off I had it set for 12 pounds for my lawnmower tires. As soon as it got up over that, it just shut off. Knowing that lets me know I have a blockage. Okay, I just blew through that with my mouth, and it blew. It's not stopped up. So next thing I did is I blew through this hose. This is what goes from here down the length of this arm and squirts out, and I cannot get anything to come out of that. So it must be stopped up. I swear it's always, if it's not one thing, it's another. I mean, I'm glad to have that leak, the split hose fixed, but then dadgummit, I didn't know I was going to get into all of this. Okay, I attached my little air compressor to this and turned it on, but I can hear a little air coming through it, but then it shuts off. So I'm gonna end up taking this tube off and see what I can figure out. Looks like now I've never worked on one of these things. I have no idea what to expect beyond this. So the hose just runs up here. Maybe that this tip is plugged. I don't know. Let me see if I can figure out how to get all that undone. Bonus footage. How to get a wiper arm off that's never been off in 11 years and is rusted on. I did watch a little YouTube video that suggested using a pair of vice grips and clamping it on here and then wiggling this arm back and forth until it loosens. However, because this arm has a spring mechanism in it, I cannot really get any good leverage on it to cause it to rock this back and forth to get it loose. So I was looking for some PB Blaster because that's really good at removing rusted stuff, but I ended up finding some, basically it's the same thing as WD-40. Loosens rusted parts and all that good stuff. So I sprayed it and let it sit for just a little bit. And now I am just working one side and the other. I'll get it to where it's tight and then lock it. And then wiggle it a little bit, undo it. Try not to hit my paint. Then I opened my window glass because I was bumping. I didn't want to break it. But then do the same thing at the top. Clamp that down. See how it moved a little bit? And then using that, when I undo this, I'll tighten that just a little bit more. I'll go back to the bottom. There is a puller made for this, but I surely wasn't going to go buy one. You know how I am. I don't want to spend a buck. Then go to the bottom and do the same thing. I need to tighten that a little bit more. And I just keep tightening a little bit more and clamping top, clamping bottom, clamping top. And it seems to be wiggling it. Yep, now I finally got it loose enough. I think I can pull that off. Oh, and by the way, before you do that, don't take this, there's a nut here. I use a 13mm socket to loosen that, but I didn't take it all the way off. I left enough on there so that I had something to clamp to with the vice grip so I wouldn't mess up the threads of that bolt. So you first loosen that nut up to the top, and then it should be loose enough now that I can take this off, and then I'll get back into checking the tube. This is the squirter. It has two little holes, one right there and then one on the other side there. Now, I don't know, I have not even researched to see how to go about getting this block off that has the squirter. That looks like there's a tab here and in here that you would squeeze and have this little block here to pop off. Now, I've poked a very tiny screwdriver in there and did not have any luck popping it off, and I'm kind of afraid to dig too much and damage it, because then I'm going to end up having to replace this whole wiper arm. I'm pretty sure they don't sell just this part. Okay, I tried prying a little bit more on those what looks like tabs, but I could not get that to budge, and I'm just not going to tear it up. So I just used my little screwdriver, put it in there, and pulling this tube off. Or I'm gonna blow some air through that and see if that's the problem. Nope, that's clear. So my problem is going to be in this. This is going to be stopped up. All right, I used my air compressor and put it against that little hole there that it squirts out, and I did the same thing on the other side, and I finally had something shot out of this right here. So I'm hoping I have the blockage cleaned out. I mean, those are teeny tiny holes. It does not surprise me that was stopped up. I just had no idea it was like that. So I'm going to get this put back on, and I'm gonna put my air compressor, turn it on. Alright, I've got it rigged up and sitting on my bumper, and I'm gonna see, I'm gonna go up there and push the button and see if it squirts out really well. I hope it doesn't soak my camera. Getting water now. Okay, we're gonna try it. Seriously? Are you serious? It took several tries, but that little piece that little square thing that had the teeny tiny holes in it, that was blocked up with some stuff. I finally had to take this thing off, take it in the house, and I just ran a teeny tiny wire up in those little holes and finally got some flakes of stuff out, and that was just blocked up. Anyway, everything's working fine.